7:49, call to order and flag salute.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, do we have the consent agenda minutes dated May 8th? Okay. Second, it's been moved and seconded to approve the agenda of May 8th. All say aye.
Right.
Nay?
Mr. Chairman, I'll abstain. I was not attending.
Okay. All right. Topics from the floor. Do we have anybody that would like to talk about something that's not on the agenda tonight? Seeing none? Okay. Right. It's now 7:50, and the public hearing is now open. This is a quasi-judicial land use hearing. The subject of this hearing is a request for a comprehensive plan map and zoning map amendment. The subject property is identified on the county assessor's map as lot 600 on map 4N1W-8AC. The applicant is Rocky Allen. The owner is Happy Heritage LLC. Because the quasi-judicial proceedings require observance of certain procedural formalities, we'll take a few moments to cover some preliminary matters that require statements. Does any member of the commission wish to declare ex parte contact or conflict of interest or bias in this matter? Hearing none. Okay. Does anyone from the audience object to the ability of the commissioner to make a fair decision? Seeing none. Generally, the order of proceedings will be as follows. Required statements of the staff report, applicant's presentation, those in favor of the application, neutral testimony, and those opposed. Rebuttal by applicant, final questions, close of the record, deliberations, and decision. Following statements are required to be made at the commencement of the hearing pursuant to the City Code ORS 197.7635. The following is a list of applicable substantive
Substantive.
criteria for this decision. St. Helens Municipal Code 17-08.040. A, I, and A 1 and 3, 2, 3. Is that correct? Anyway, quasi-judicial amendment standards. All testimony, arguments, and evidence must be directed towards the applicable substantive criteria as described or other criteria in the plan, such as a comprehensive plan or land use regulation, such as found in the development code, which the person believes and applies to the decision. Failure to raise an issue, including constitutional or other issues relating to the proposed conditions or approval in this hearing in person or in writing, or failure to raise an issue accompanied by statements or evidence sufficient to afford the approving authority an opportunity to respond to the issue, precludes appeal to LUBA, Land Use Appeals Board, on that issue, and precludes an action for damages in circuit court. Staff, do you have a report?
I do, thank you, Mr. Chairman. So this property is on the corner, almost on the corner of Furlock Park Boulevard and US 30. It's adjacent to a property that you all have known for years as the veterinarian clinic there, and for a few years as the property that Noyes Thai food cart was on. So this is the vacant property, basically just behind it if you're standing on the highway. The property has been historically vacant, no development history as far as I'm aware. It was owned by Valpiani, which was a name in St. Helens. Had a lot of properties for many years, not as common name anymore. And they purchased the property in January of 2018. And they would like it to be highway commercial, so they can advance their business goals to develop it. And currently, it is not highway commercial. It's moderate residential R7. And so, to change it from yellow to pink, we have to have some public hearings and ask for your recommendations of approval and council decision. And so, this is the first hearing, the first step in that process. So, there's two things: amending the comprehensive plan map from residential to highway commercial, and then to change the zoning from R7 to highway commercial. So on the north side, you have the road. On the east, you have the vet clinic that I had mentioned. Along the south, you'll see a very organic property line. That's because it is more or less the creek there. And then on the west side, you have some properties developed as residential. It's a little over 2 acres. Not all of it is developable because you do have the creek there, some floodplain, some riparian area. So let's get into the meat of it. As a city, what is our beef, or do we have beef? And one of the important things to recognize is this: if we look at the entire pattern of highway commercial zoning, or the comprehensive plan designation. So I was looking at the map earlier today, and between Millard Road and Pittsburgh Road, which is roughly, well, it's more than 11,000 linear feet. So a good swath of area. The depth of the highway commercial zone or comprehensive plan designation, where it's not in city limits, is between 200 and 800 feet. So it ranges from that depth, except for two segments. There's a segment roughly 250 feet in length, which is about 150 deep. That's a little north of Columbia Boulevard. And then behind that area, there's mixed use and general commercial. So it doesn't automatically go from highway commercial to residential. And the other location is here. Now, that property that the veterinary clinic is on is not in city limits, but it is planned in a comprehensive plan as highway commercial. And there, it's as little as 85 feet. And so strictly from looking at how much land we have off of the highway designated as commercial, it makes a whole lot of sense to change it. So that's looking at it from a commercial standpoint. Now we do get into some technicalities. For example, the transportation planning rule. What the transportation planning rule says is when we change from one zone to another, and that new zone can potentially generate more trips, we have to have an analysis. And you don't see an analysis in here. And there's a reason for that. So now I can tell a story. When I started here in August of 2007, the first thing that I did is I sat in a room for 2 or 3 months, I can't remember which one, and rebuilt the zoning and comprehensive plan maps, because that was a mess. Any planner starting from scratch, using the maps available at the time, would be in planner hell. Because when you're trying to administrate land use without knowing what the heck your zoning is, that's hell. You're just guessing. So that's why when I first started here, my predecessor, Skip Baker, had me rebuild the maps. At the time, I had some maps at my disposal, but I had no experience with the city. And over the years, I've weeded out all the errors. And one of the last errors was actually this property. So these maps, if you look at the various maps since I've been here, the zoning map's been consistent. It's always shown it as R7. But the comprehensive plan has shown this particular property as highway commercial. And it's just by happenstance, I got a call from the county about some other property to the south. And that's where that combined with, over the years, digitizing all the maps, and I have all the historic maps at my disposal. And I found, this was never highway commercial. That was a mapping error. And it was my error because of what I had at the time. So at least I can attest to that with 100% assurity because I lived through it. My point is, in 2010, around there, 9-10, when we updated our transportation systems plan, our assumption is that it was highway commercial. And so all these estimates, because we talk about this corridor plan we had, and they develop all these estimates of traffic generation based on use and population. And so my thought was, okay, well, we based this plan on it being highway commercial, so we don't need to require an analysis. Jenny happened to field a call from our ODOT rep who said there is a provision in the transportation planning rule that says if there's a mistake, it's cool. So I'm glad I made the right assumption. It was affirmed, at least verbally, by ODOT. And so the fact that we don't have that analysis is basically okay. The other important thing to recognize is if you look at this map really closely, if we rezone this property to commercial, we'll have one single lot zoned R7. Because if you look to the south and west of that yellow blob there, you'll see that there are little tan dots, and that means apartment residential, or pink dots to the south. And who knows why that little area was zoned R7? I don't know. It's been like that for a long time. So the reason I bring that up is whenever we talk about zoning, we want to avoid spot zoning. And we wouldn't normally want to create a situation where one little lot like that is hanging out by itself in its own zoning district. But in this case, I think it's okay. Because it makes sense that be commercial, as I mentioned before, it'd be consistent with the depth of commercial off of the highway. So that's why I support it. It makes sense for it to be commercial. If you look on the other side of the street, what do you see? You see a bunch of pink. That's commercial. So the circumstances are a little peculiar, but I support it from a staff standpoint.
So why?
Notwithstanding testimony, which we haven't heard yet, of course.
So why wouldn't you also rezone that one little lot out of R7? Why leave it hanging out?
This is not a city-initiated zone change. This is initiated by the property owner.
Okay.
It's a good question, though.
Excuse me, you'll have your turn, sir. Yeah, we've got to wait and do this in an order. I'll definitely get to you. All right, is that it?
That's it.
Okay, thank you. Could we have the applicant's presentation come up and give a presentation?
All right, first time doing this ever. So,
Just state your name and address for the record.
So I wanted to point out too, address isn't required.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah, because we're on live TV, and so some people might feel uncomfortable. I
Oh.
wanted to point that out before the hearing, but just so everyone knows,
Okay.
his name is required.
Well, you're the boss.
okay, my name's Rocky Allen, and we would like to request to change this property from residential R7 to city commercial. We feel like it's good location for future business, considering the properties around it are also city commercial. My wife and I have been a part of this community for 20 years and would love the opportunity to have a business in our community. That's pretty much all I prepared.
Great. Very good. Okay, thanks very much.
Is that it?
Do we have anybody out here request a testimony in support of this application? I see none. Do we have any request for neutral testimony in this application?
I'll answer that question. That question may prompt, the answer may prompt conversation, so I'll go ahead and.
Okay.
So the property I'm talking about, I don't know what the address is, but it's the home on this parcel right here. The subject property is this shape here, which if zoned, it would be pink highway commercial, leaving this single property here as R7.
So that would be city initiated then, that parcel, or you're saying
We
that's not the same owner then?
Yeah, we can't just, we'll throw that in there. I don't know, we couldn't see if the state, it wouldn't be a best practice. We could certainly entertain changing it, but, if that property owner is happy having a house there, and they don't want to rebuild, it could stay like that for a long time. But certainly if they would want to change to apartment residential and have a higher density, it would probably be a pretty easy sell.
Right.
So I have a question. What is the difference between unincorporated highway commercial and highway commercial?
Are you in city limits or not?
No.
Okay. So only the back part of this is in the city limits. The front part facing directly on the highway is
The entire subject property is in city limits, but this map. So on this map, if the parcel has a color to it, blue, pink, red, gray, yellow, it is in city limits. If not, if it's void of color, it's still in the urban growth boundary because the urban growth boundary is way away, but it's not within city limits currently.
but this is in the city.
Oh yeah, see in this case the parcel that has the diagonal shading to it,
Right.
that's the subject property.
Right.
It's been in the city for a long time.
But the property in front of it along the highway is not
That's correct.
Not in the city?
Yep.
in the city. No. That's why I asked.
And
That's really
to
weird.
the south, that property's not in the city?
That's correct.
Wow, okay.
Keep nibbling on them.
Yeah, I don't know why the vet clinic's not. I agree. It's weird. But, there's a lot of weird things.
Well,
And I can't, I haven't worked
I
here
was
for 40
confused.
years
That's
to
why
explain it.
I was confused. That's why.
Do we have opposition yet?
do we have any opposition to the testimony? Did that answer your question, sir, that you asked earlier about the lot?
I have no opposition, but I would like at least to make a neutral comment or two.
Would you like to come up?
Certainly.
Just state your name, not your address.
My name is Jim Clackum, Clackum. I have that funny little solid yellow piece in your diagonal section. That's my wife and me.
No.
She's disabled. We've been there about 12 years. Magnificent area. Of course, the creek goes behind it. Wonderful trees all to the back. But since I'm surrounded, like on 3 sides there, I'm concerned with even the little tag that goes behind my house as to whether it's all going to be a big concrete open area, or concrete area or something now surrounding the house, which is all quite lush and forested now. So I'm not opposed to the development of that particular property or anything like that. I just am very curious as to the plans with it and whether I'm just going to be left as a house in the middle of a concrete block area. That was it.
Yeah, there's a few things that will help, that will impact that. One, you have the creek there, and we do have riparian rules. Now the council is revisiting those, so that's something you may want to be aware of in the upcoming months. But currently, the riparian area, which is a protected area, is upland 50 feet. Now there are ways you can build into that, but you can't just do it automatically. And it's also floodplain. So that will reduce some of that. Now, Valpiani, about 10 years ago, they did an analysis of what buildable area there was based on the current riparian rules, and the map right there kind of shows it.
It's in there.
Yes, I have that.
And that may have been in your, it was an attachment. Yeah, that map there.
Oh, yeah.
And you can kind of see, where your property takes a bite out of that. It's not the most efficient area behind it. So that's not necessarily a guarantee, but it's something that may minimize the intensity of development immediately adjacent to the outside. Another thing that we have is when a more intense zoning develops along a less intense commercial and residential, for example. The commercial development is supposed to include screening and buffering. That way, there is a little more harmony between uses.
I understand.
That'll all be determined in a later process through actual site development review when we look at that. This is just to say, well, what can you use the property for? Currently, residential. In R7, it's fairly restrictive, basically detached single-family dwellings. You can get a duplex on there. You might be able to cut it up, get a couple duplexes. As highway commercial, obviously, it opens the door to other uses. But highway commercial is not a friendly zone for residential. So it's probably going to be commercial if it's rezoned.
I understand. And I know the council agrees, or at least understands my concern that stuck right there in a little corner like that. I'm interested what's going to do the livability, crash the price of the property, whatever it is, because it obviously is sort of the odd piece out in whatever design and however you wish to interpret that design. That's all I had.
Great, thanks very much. Do we have any questions? Okay. Oh, yes, come on up.
I guess initial statement and some questions. Come up to the microphone. My name's Lynn Henry, and I live in the next property up, next to the gentleman who was just speaking.
Oh.
We bought that property 3 years ago, and at the time, the title company told us that it was within the city limits. Since then, I've learned that it's not. So I did have a question in terms of when city limit boundaries change. Are the people, the residents, supposed to be notified?
So you own the property immediately adjacent to that gentleman's?
Yes, the next property.
Okay.
Right there.
Well, there are provisions in law where a city can force an annexation. Now, the city of St. Helens has not forced an annexation for many, many decades, 30, 40 years, speaking to people who have been here a long time. And I don't see the city council doing that. And I'm not that familiar with those laws because I haven't had to really use them. So I don't know if we could even do that. Typically, people annex either because they need a connection to a city service. And was there a sewer line? No, it's a water line that goes through there. So are you on our water or McNulty's?
We're on well water.
You're on a well, okay. Well, third option, a well. And a septic system?
Yes.
Okay. And I know there's not a sewer line. I think there's a water line. So let's say there's two scenarios that you may annex. Let's say your well becomes toxic for some reason. Oh no, you need a potable water source. Well, the water line's right there. So in order to connect to the water line, you have to file a consent to annex, which means, okay, in trade for giving you the service, you're saying, take me in. So that's one way. And that's a public hearing process similar to this, where you and the surrounding property owners would be notified and all the legal notices and stuff. The other scenario, likely scenario of annexation, let's say you want to live in Alaska or Hawaii or somewhere else. And, well, God, I want to maximize what I can do with my property. And you have a designation that would let you have to be zoned apartment residential. So you go to the county because you're under their jurisdiction, and I want to build a fourplex. I'm just throwing, I haven't analyzed it to see what kind of density is allowed. And the county says, nope, sorry, can't do it under our laws. Oh, you're in the urban growth boundary. You should talk to the city too. So you come over, talk to us, and we look at our code and go, hey, look at that. You can build a fourplex under our rules. Then you say, sign me up. I want to annex to use your rules. So those are the two scenarios that you would annex.
But to your knowledge, it's never been within the city limits, that property.
No, I'm not aware of any. De-annexations do occur. I know one happened in Scappoose several years ago, but they're pretty rare.
Why is there that one little piece on the other side? You said all the colored ones are city limits. What is the tan piece?
Oh, the tan piece. That's a really good case. So that exemplifies scenario number one. So
Is that the goat did it?
that is the goat one. Yep, that's the goat story.
Blame it on the goat?
That's the Goatler property. I guess some goat knocked over a lantern and built a pump house
Burned the pump house down, yeah.
down.
On the well, yeah.
So that took their water source out. So they had to file a consent to annex, which we found years later. And hey, look at this, we have a consent to annex. So they annexed.
I just thought that was a spot designation, so I was just wanted to make sure.
Yeah, blame that one on the goat.
Yep, that's what he said.
And the funny thing is, the reason I know that is our former mayor used to work for the fire department, and I remember presenting this, and he had this really interested look on his face. I'm like, well, it's just a routine annexation. What's the big deal? So then he told that story. I was like, well, that's kind of funny.
I remember it because nobody watches this TV show, and I didn't think. And I came home from planning commission, and my son said, blame it on the goat. I thought, wow, he watched.
Oh, he watched the annexation?
Yeah.
Oh, that's funny.
Well, yeah, I would just add that, we've been there for 3 years and we really enjoy the property. We have beavers along the creek, golden eagle fly through, blue heron, and deer travel up and down the creek. So, our hope is that none of that would change. And that kind of, I guess, depends on what is built on that piece of property. And
So
I think
Jacob,
that's
doesn't the sewer line go down Kavanaugh? Wasn't there a sewer line down Kavanaugh years ago?
Yes, there is a sewer line.
Did that go all the way to Furlock?
I can't remember, to be honest.
I thought it did because they're.
I'd have to look at the utility map. Yeah, because we've been talking with the applicant about sewer extension, and it seems like Kavanaugh was not an option, not a feasible option, in part because of the creek, and so they would have to pull off the line.
So you don't think
which
that
is
sewer line went under the
in the
creek?
highway. I don't think so. It's been a little while since I've talked about it. I think we have another question.
Go ahead. Come on up.
More of a comment based on your sewer line. I've been there 14 years. I'm on city water, but I have a septic. And there was some kind of a convoluted story about why that was. But that little bitty piece that's stuck over next to the property in question, that's a half and half. Half water from the city and half its own septic. And then next door to me, they have their own well and their septic. So we're right at the splitting point of where everything
Great. Any other comments? Staff? Okay. Hearing no further questions from the commission and no further responses from the staff, the public record is closed. This matter is returned to the table for deliberations and oral discussion.
This is a recommendation.
This is a recommendation, yep. Council, it's the council's call as a legislative act.
And we can't, at this point, we can't say anything as far as recommending anything as far as buffers or anything like that. That doesn't come up in this.
Yeah, that would be a little beyond the scope of the zone change.
That would be in building plans. If you're talking about a fence or something,
Right. Well, buffer, yeah.
that would be down the road.
You can say you'll hang me if I don't require it, but that would just be something outside of the ordinance.
So I think it's pretty cut and dry.
Yeah.
So I make a recommendation that we recommend to the city council to approve a zone map amendment from moderate residential R7 to highway commercial, and the comprehensive plan map change from suburban residential to highway commercial for the subject property.
I'll second it.
Been moved and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Nay? Hearing none? Okay.
So the council meeting will be in July.
Thank you. No goats. Yeah, don't get any goats.
Goats.
Don't get any goats.
No goats, huh? That was funny.
Okay. It's now 8:21. This is a quasi-judicial land use hearing. The subject of this hearing is a request for a conditional use permit. Subject property is identified on County Assessor's map as Lot 4100 on map 4N1W-3BA. The applicant is Elliot Michael. The owner is Masonic Building LLC. Because quasi-judicial proceedings require the observance of certain procedural formalities, we will take a few moments to cover some preliminary matters and required statements. Does any member of the commission wish to declare ex parte contact, conflict of interest, or bias in this matter? Hearing none. Does any member of the commission wish to declare, sorry, lost my place. 19, fine. Anyone from the audience object to the ability of commissioner to make a fair decision? Seeing none. Generally, the order of the proceedings will be as follows. Required statement, staff report, applicant's presentation. Those in favor of the application, neutral testimony. Those opposed, rebuttal by applicant. Final questions, close of the record. Deliberations and decisions. The following statements are required to be made at the commencement of the hearing pursuant to the City Code ORS 197.7635. The following is a list of applicable substantive criteria for this decision. St. Helens Municipal Code 17.100.040, 1A through F. Approval standards for conditions. All testimony, arguments, and evidence must be directed towards the applicable substantive criteria as described or other criteria in the plan, such as the comprehensive plan, land use regulations, such as found in the development code, which the person believes applies to the decision. Failure to raise an issue, including constitutional or other issues relating to the proposed conditions of approval in this hearing, in person or in writing, or failure to raise an issue accompanied by statements or evidence sufficient to afford to the approving authority an opportunity to respond to the issue, precludes appeal to LUBA, Land Use Appeals Board, on that issue, and precludes an action for damages in circuit court. All right, do we have a request from staff?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. So this is kind of similar to the conditional use permit we had for the Resonate Church, although Dr. Michael does not have a congregation to fill the room like they did.
He's hoping to.
So this is the Masonic Building. I'm sure you are familiar with it, since at the very least you drive by it twice a day when you come to your planning commission meeting every month. Some of you for work. The Masonic Building, the entire bottom floor, the proposal is for a child care facility. The reason we have to have this hearing is child care facility is conditionally permitted use in the Riverfront District. So we get a have this hearing, and you get to be the decision-making authority on the matter. So there's a couple things that you can kind of consider for potential conditions. One is parking. If you want to have a condition about parking, I'm not sure what it would be. We kind of talked about it for the church, though, so that's a potential. One thing we do think is a relevant condition, because the property, you have the building and the property lines, and there's not much else. There's not a whole lot of property beyond the building, and so it becomes a question of, where do you put your trash? Where does it get picked up and stuff like that? And so we just want to make sure there's a basic plan for that under those circumstances. And there's the subject property there. You can see the property lines in bold. And so there's a recommended condition for just a trash management plan. It should be simple. We just want to make sure they know what they're going to do for that. And then another thing to think about, since this is a commercial area, on page 4 of the report, it talks about the types of conditions you can impose, and there's a whole list of examples. And as a commercial area, one thing we kind of thought about was, how can this type of business contribute to the economic vitality of the area? And one idea, and this came from Jenny, I can't take credit for it. She got it from a conversation with some other folks, is if the daycare offered drop-in services for shoppers. And so it kind of creates an incentive for people to spend some time downtown. And the way that would manifest itself in the recommended conditions, it's not written in there now. But I think what you would do is, just like you have the trash management plan, is you would have some business plan that demonstrates how drop-in services would be implemented. In proposed condition 2B, that's the stuff prior to development permit issuance. And then condition 3 would be, the long-term condition that the use would offer drop-in services. Something to discuss. I don't know how the landowner feels about it, but he'll certainly have an opportunity to speak momentarily.
So we have the legal right to do that?
That's what I'm wondering.
Well, as a conditional use permit, you can impose time, place, and manner conditions given the circumstances of the site. I don't know if there's a lot of case law about this because it's very specific. If you feel a little uncomfortable about that, you could simply make it a recommendation and kind of hope that's kind of the angle they go with.
Well, yeah, because I think that could potentially change the entire business plan of an operation. My concern is the fact that this facility does not have any kind of outdoor play area.
Yeah.
Now, I realize that there's a plaza across the street and a park down here, but depending on the ages of the children, we have a thoroughfare here, and there's a crosswalk up, but is that going to be sufficient to provide for a daycare?
Why can't they just play in the street?
Well, maybe like your children.
I'm
play.
just kidding.
Can I just clarify
We'll
that
put a basketball
your
court
concern
out
is about childcare in general, not necessarily the drop-in services?
there. Uh-huh.
That it's just about the larger use, that they don't have an outdoor area for the kids to play.
Right.
Okay.
No, we understand that.
I just wanted to make sure it wasn't just about the drop-in
But the
condition.
drop-in, that bothers me.
No.
That
My
you
cons-
can have-
For me,
My concern initially was, before the drop-in issue,
Yeah.
was because of the location
Yeah.
and the fact that
Yeah.
what you see here are the physical limitations of this particular property. You have no yard,
Yeah.
you have no front yard,
Yeah.
and, if you're going to have a play area
Sure.
for youngsters, you're gonna have to troop them out in all kinds of weather, either into the plaza or over into the Riverview Park.
Well, let's hear from the applicant. Are you
I'm
done?
fine. Yep.
Okay. Could we hear from the applicant?
My name is Elliot Michael. I'd like to thank you all for the opportunity to present for the conditional use of the building. I'd like to address a couple of issues which have come up, and then one of the rationales which I think justifies the conditional use itself. From a personal perspective, I've done a lot in the community with various buildings that I do own to try to upgrade things in the community and provide services for the community. It's not just, putting something in which would not benefit the community. There have been many people who have come forward with different ideas for that building site, which I actually never even entertained or would put them down because I honestly didn't feel it was something that was going to enhance the community and be a benefit to the community. So I'm very conscious of that. I'm very socially conscious in most of the things that I do, and I try to be. As far as putting the child care facility there, I feel it is supporting the community in a very big manner. I think it's something that's needed in the community. I myself am not doing it. I own the facility. Mitigation LLC is just an LLC that owns the building. And in speaking with Carmela, and unfortunately she's not here to assist in the presentation because she had an injury and she was hospitalized, and now she's going through some rehab stuff and will probably need another surgery. So unfortunately she's not here, but in talking to her about some of the things that came up, she's very passionate about providing a service for the community and sees a need that there's a tremendous need for the services. And the question comes in, okay, why that building? Because that's one of the things that can come up. And it's centrally located. It's a good area. It is something which I feel will enhance the commercial essence of the downtown core, because one of the major problems that we've had in the downtown core is foot traffic and having people come down. It's very difficult for businesses to support and sustain themselves. I think, as all of you know, there are businesses that have come and gone down through the main street here, and it's because you need to be able to generate enough income to be able to sustain yourself, and to do that there has to be a sustainable traffic pattern. And that's one of the things that this will enable the community down here, is to have a sustainable traffic pattern, that people are going to be coming and going on a consistent basis. As far as parking goes, this is not where people are going to be parking for an extended period of time, so I don't see that as an issue. And if they're going to be parking for any extended period of time, it's because they're doing shopping and doing other things, which is what we want to promote in the community to begin with. So I see it as something which is a really good balancing act. It'll help bring down more foot traffic. It'll provide a service for the community, and it will bring more people down into the core. One of the concerns that I did talk to Carmela when I read through the report was the concern about possibly having a drop-in service. She's primarily been working with DHS. Number one, whether this would even come to fruition is based on whether we can meet all the standards and requirements to create a classification for that building anyway. But the point is it doesn't make any sense to go through all of that and the expense of doing that if we know that we can't do it. So that's one of the things that I just want to get out there, that also is that it is providing a service for people who otherwise wouldn't be able to pay for a service. And that's why she's basing it at that point. She feels To start off with, it would be difficult for her to do a drop-in service because there are certain rules as to, excuse me, the number of teachers or people who are present, a ratio pattern for the number of children and the supervision. And there'd be no way for her to properly be able to adjust drop-in service at the beginning. As she gets going and she's able to build her business, then I think that she's more than happy to do that, because then she would have a basis for be able to expand her business, because why wouldn't somebody want drop-in service and increase your revenue that you would be able to generate for your business? So I don't think that she is against that at all. She's concerned about that being a requirement on the onset because of those reasons. And I most certainly hope you can appreciate the sensitivity of her being a successful business and being able to get off the ground, and that she most certainly would entertain and probably even want to have the drop-in service once she knew that she could afford to be hiring on additional personnel beyond the numbers which she knows she absolutely has and will be getting grants and funding for. So that's one of the issues. In regards to, you know, the outdoor area, you know, there is no argument in that regard. We don't have it. The building is 5,000 square foot. The way that that would be the area that they would occupy is 5,000 square foot, which is a pretty large space. And the way that she was dividing that up with carpeted area and play structure area and other programs which she was going to be doing, because one of the things is that activity-wise, what do kids do? And this is designed for really after-school activity, drop-in and after-school care, that the kids would be bused there, and then parents would be coming and picking them up. She was hoping to do summer programs, and I'm sure she's going to be doing some of those things. And yeah, I mean, from my perspective, it would be great to get the kids outdoors as well. And I'm sure that she's going to be looking at ways of promoting that in a safe manner for the kids, but I know the way that she's designing things for the interior side is to have plenty of activities for the kids to be doing inside, as well as different things like art programs and things of that nature for the kids. So I think that while there isn't outdoor space contiguous with that building, there is none. I wouldn't be so facetious as to argue that point. So, but I think that it does provide a much-needed service that it is well worth the benefit of realizing that, okay, it can't provide every little thing, but it is going to be providing a tremendous asset to the families that utilize it as well as the community, because it will start generating traffic. And it's always been a major problem in getting people into the downtown core. I mean, they get done, they pick up their kids, it's a Friday night, they go and get something to eat, they might go to the movies, other things like that. So I do see it as being a benefit to those businesses that are in the downtown core. You know, it's not that it's not going to be. The trash, if you don't mind, Jenny, the one photo which shows the front and the back of the building, not that, but the front and back, there were pictures.
Front page.
Great.
There.
So if you look in the center of the area on the back of the building, which we are going to be moving forward and getting the building cleaned and painted on both sides. As a matter of fact, we're going to try to get a grant, and I did want to sit down with the city at one point and talk to them. And some of the things that they would like to see on a mural on the side of the building, because that's a tremendous platform to be able to promote things in the city, and such a big push on Halloween Town, and whether something's done with, you know, a pumpkin picture, Halloween Town, or just different, you know, mural things that we can do on the building. Only because the front of the building looks really nice, and we got to part by part do the rest of the building. But from a building owner's perspective as well, when we have income coming in, we can do a lot. When we don't, we can't. So, you know, that's one of the things. And I have owned this building for a long time, for 10 years, and there was nothing that we could do for a long time because there was nobody who was looking for any space down here. It was horrible. I invested in a couple of buildings just before the downturn in the economy, and we started fixing up a couple of the buildings, and you know, it's been a rough haul, to be honest with you, but we are looking at cleaning that up. And getting to the point about the trash is, there is, in the center there is an overhang, and there there is a recess there that receptacles could be placed for individual trash bins. We don't feel that we need to provide an overall dumpster, because I just don't think that they're going to be producing that much refuse that would even be an issue. If it got to that point that it was, then most certainly off the back, we could put a fenced-in area and put a trash dumpster. But I talked to Carmela about that as well, and she just doesn't see where they're generating trash from this operation. So we would provide an area in the back there where they could use trash cans, but I don't think it's gonna take more than the big, 2 or 3 by 3, trash things that the trucks come by and pick up. Most certainly if it did, then we would just take care of that. Trying to figure out if there's anything else that we had to do. No, I think that's
Would that area, on the days when those smaller trash receptacles are out there, would it be screened from view of those using the parking lot?
Well, I gave this a lot of thought as to what we would do, because as everybody knows, there's problems with graffiti and kids messing around and things like that. And I think probably what we would do is simply have them, if you look at the back of the building, you'll see where there's sort of like a Quonset area that comes back. That's all separated from the main building with a wall. And it's really delivery. There's 2 delivery doors. One is just behind that red car. The other is right where the arrow is in the recess. Those are considered sort of the delivery door areas. And to simply have the trash receptacles on the inside of the building and then bring them out for trash day, that's what my recommendation would be, because otherwise I think we're going to be dealing with an issue with kids messing around anyway. I mean, it's just the reality.
People are going through the trash cans down here on First Street on a regular basis for the haircut places.
I'm sorry,
Down here, I know the shops down here bring out their trash on trash day, and just having it out for that one day, they have people going through their trash can. So, I mean, that just happens. That's just a fact of life.
And we just try to limit them for obvious reasons. We don't want to have people just hanging out. Number 2, garbage all over the place, and so.
I have a question. for
Sure.
you. Have you got a plan for drop-off pickup of the kids? Where will that occur?
Well, there is the parking, which is off-street parking directly in front. There's also the parking directly behind. So there's ample area for the kids to be picked up either in the front or in the back. I cannot tell you their business plan as to how they're going to be doing that. I can only tell you that the access is available. I think it's a valid point that they probably will need to address to an extent that, but I don't know exactly how many parking spaces in front of that building, but if you look at parking that's all the way down the street, most of the time people are parking in front of the establishments themselves, and since there's nothing else going there for people to come in and out, I don't think that should be a major problem, but I don't have a crystal ball to be able to.
Retired teacher. And one of the things that I know about kids is that the coming and going are hazardous. Once the child is inside the school, it's a lot less, or daycare center, there's a lot less to worry about. But getting from the car into the school can be problematic, and that's why I was asking about what
Well,
your ideas are for that.
Sure. So number 1, I know that any daycare facility, they no longer let kids go outside to meet the individual who has been approved to pick them up. There have been significant changes in regards to picking up kids. I know for my own kids, when we drop them off, they went to the community center after school, and to be picked up, we had to go in, sign them out, and pick them up. If I wasn't doing it, my wife wasn't doing it, say our older son was doing it, we had to let them know who it was that was going to be picking those kids up. And they're under the custody or custodianship of that individual who's signing them out and walking them out of the door. We don't have control, and no establishment has control of what happens to those kids when they leave the establishment.
Only to the extent that the organization has a clear understanding of who picked the child up.
no child can be released without a clear understanding of who is picking that child up. That doesn't happen.
That helps,
That's a state law, yeah.
that helps.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, nobody can come in and the kids can't run outside saying, oh, there's mommy or whoever, you know,
Yeah.
Uncle Joe or whoever it might be. They can't run outside and do that. They have to be under custodial direct care of whoever is signing them out to walk them out.
Thank you.
So I understand that this is not your business, but as much as you know about what the proponent has as far as her idea, maybe you can answer some of my questions.
Sure, absolutely.
What are the ages of the kids that the daycare will be providing for?
The exact ages, I don't know, but let me make a text as we ask the other questions, and hopefully I can get some of those answers for you.
I'm not looking for exact ages, but sort of in the ballpark.
They're school, I think most of them are school-age children. I don't think that it's not a preschool.
Okay.
By my understanding, from everything that she's done, I don't believe it's a preschool scenario.
And did you indicate before that it was only after-school activity?
Primarily, but, you know, I do not want to speak out of.
Sure,
It was
and
my-
that's
It was
understandable.
my understanding.
Okay.
And if you want to wait, I'll try to text her if that's
Yeah.
within the scope of what we're doing.
Well, the other question is how many kids would you be anticipating, or would she be anticipating, and what would the kids to staff ratio be?
Well, that's all, the kid-to-staff ratio is a state regulation.
Okay.
So I don't set that, but I can assure you that's going to be upheld.
Okay.
As far as the number, that's an occupancy ratio as well. So they can only do what's legally an occupation as far as what's occupied within that site, which
Right.
they can do. The exact numbers of that, I'm not sure.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah.
So it seems like a very limited number of hours that she intends to operate this.
Correct. During the summer, it would be extended hours because people are at work and they need
Right.
to drop their kids off and they no longer have school
Sure.
where they're going to be dropping them off. So in that regard, there are going to be greater hours, but it's not the type of operation that's going to be going on for evening hours. It's pretty much, you know, 5, 6 o'clock, 7 o'clock, the latest, by my understanding.
So the anticipated clientele would be coming here, it wouldn't necessarily be generated from residents around in downtown, at least because we haven't developed the waterfront yet, but whoever happens to live around here, they're expecting, be drawing people from outside of this district. So because you were saying they would draw people into the Riverfront district, and so that's what she's anticipating, they'd be coming from all over St. Helens, or?
Correct, yes.
Okay.
Plus, they would get busing for after-school busing into the program. I mean, that's what she's arranging and getting grants for from DHS.
Okay, cool.
This is probably gonna be similar to the monkey tree that's up in with the DHS in the state offices.
I can't make comment to another
Well,
because I'm.
no, I'm sure you can't, but they had, say, 20 during the day, and then at noon, well, some went to kindergarten, and the bus picked them up.
Right.
Some came at that time, because they were done
Interesting.
with morning kindergarten, and then after school, there was a group that
Correct.
would come by school bus.
That's my understanding of
Yeah,
how the
I would say
operation
she'd have a core group during the day that are preschoolers.
I was thinking into the future, if more development happens down here, more residences, would her program fit for local residents, or is it really for a different kind of clientele than who might live down here?
I'm not sure I understand. the question.
I'm just thinking in the future after, I mean, if she gets a childcare established there and she's way below the capacity, and as it gets built up here, it would be a great place for people to live down here. They got a daycare center, they've got businesses. I mean, that helps the livability of this area here to live in here.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
That's my point.
Yeah.
Providing
Yeah.
a community
Yeah.
service.
Right.
Now that I think about it, the monkey tree doesn't have an outdoor play area either. They would walk them around the whole hospital.
Yeah. Again.
No,
I
but
can't-
I'm saying, when we're talking about having an outdoor play area, Monkey Tree doesn't have one either.
They
Like-
have big daycare centers downtown Portland. I see them with all their matching
Oh, right,
babies all the
right.
time.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I can think of
But no, I'm
5
thinking
of them
this
in
is
Portland.
local for an example.
Yeah, but I mean, lots of places don't have,
Yeah.
necessarily have outside play space.
And they've got parks and all kinds of things they
Got
get to
everything they
easily.
need.
Right.
Great. All right, do we have any more? You have a question?
So, this drawing here is,
Yes.
is, this the footprint of the building right now as it is, or is this gonna be, is this like something, like, does it have 2 bathrooms and
This is the footprint of this building as it stands now. When we converted that building and started to rehab that building, we put in 2 ADA bathrooms, so they are ADA approved. We actually raised the floor up in one to make it even with the flooring in the entire building. So that's all set. There are no step downs or anything else. It's continuous flooring now throughout, and there are 2 ADA bathrooms there. The drawing is as the building sits right now.
Okay.
This is not a proposed change in anything or structure-wise. Carmela would be providing that once she gets approval as to her inside design of where she's going to be putting what. But this is the footprint of the building as it stands right now.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Is the access to the upstairs to the south in that door?
Yeah, they're actually 2 separate addresses as well.
Oh, okay.
So, yeah, the access is, when we, several years back, when we first started to upgrade the building, we changed the entire front glass and redid that area and redid the stuccoing on the front. There are 2 doors which access this space from the front. There are 2 doors which access this space from the rear. Because when I was redoing all the work, if we weren't going to be able to get a tenant to take the entire space, it would allow us to divide the space in half.
Sure.
We did the same thing as all the upgrades I've been doing on the building. The HVAC system, they're actually 2 solid systems which are independent of each other, one for one side, right-hand side, one for the left-hand side. So all that is one. If we were ever to separate it, I've learned that we do need to put new addresses on each one of those spaces. So I wanted to make sure Jacob knew that I understood that. And the doorway that goes to the upstairs is external and separate from this space.
Right, right. And you got new HVAC in there.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, didn't
Yeah.
get the grant money, but
I didn't get the grant money for doing that. I did that on our own. I appreciate the grant money we've gotten in the past, and I'm sure I'll push in for some more, but, yes, no, I feel very strongly about, building community, providing
Right.
for the community.
that's very obvious.
Great.
All right, very good. Okay, I think we can move on now. And do we have anybody in support of this application? Any neutral? In opposition? Okay, I see none. No rebuttals. Do we have any final questions? No. Hearing no further questions and no further responses from the staff, the public record is closed. This matter is returned to the table for deliberations, oral discussions.
I think under the circumstances, DHS has to approve it.
I don't see,
I have no problem with
I don't see us requiring this drop-in thing.
No,
it. No, I don't.
no,
I
I
think
don't.
it-
not fair.
Business sense initially.
I make a recommendation that we approve the conditional use permit without any additional stipulations other than what's already in the, on the conditions.
Compliance with Columbia River Fire and Rescue and
Yeah,
Yes.
the basic.
Now, they have not responded yet, right?
no.
No, I don't think so. We have one fire marshal for the entire area whose job is to be a fire marshal and to respond to development proposals of many cities.
Well, this
Wow.
recommendation on my part, motion, would be that this would be required, that fire marshal approve it
I think.
as a condition.
It's built in there right now, number 4.
As far as the minimization of the impact on the parking, I don't think that's a big deal.
No.
I think his recommendation or his suggestion is probably the best.
So it sounds like we're scratching number 2
Yes,
and just sticking with the basics.
exactly.
That's easy.
I'll second.
Okay, motion was and seconded. All in favor, say
Aye.
Aye.
all opposed. Hearing none, passes.
And then for signature,
So moved.
A second.
and since I'm seeing you on Thursday, I'll get your signature then.
That's right, I'll be there, yeah. Just,
And I
being
hope
a good
your
road.
your business partner gets well soon. How long does she anticipate
Elliot
being
and
laid
I
up?
went for the same grant money when he was trying to do HVAC for this building, and I was trying to get the grant money that was being offered. For,
Oh, from Shedco
yeah.
that El Tapatio got.
What'd they do?
We asked them, and they said they're having trouble with financing.
Is that what the grant was for?
Yeah.
How long did they have to use that grant?
I think. Do you remember, Jenny?
Well, next question.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, it was.
Do they
It's
still
a
have
it's
the
a it's an amazing long time, you know. I
So-
think it's 3. It's
Were they
like
given the
you
money?
can't use it in 3.
Well,
It's not planned.
I don't know how they get reimbursed. I've been kind of disconnected from a while, but they submitted all their plans. They got their building permit ready, and I don't know if they picked it up or if they just never did because they didn't have financing. But I remember because we were kind of talking about it internally, like, what's going on with the project? And then random time I saw Al because he's the architect on it, and he
Right.
said it's a financing issue.
I wrote the grant, and it is a reimbursable grant. So I know that one of the requirements was that you have this money on hand to do the project, so that we can reimburse you. So that's interesting
So
to
we
know.
reimburse them as opposed to them already having the,
We have
No,
given-
they have to have the money to spend before
Right.
they get the reimbursement.
oh.
That was the
Okay,
requirement of the
okay.
grant, and so that's news to me.
And one of the other requirements was that you had to complete the project
Correct.
substantively to get the grant money.
Yeah, because it's a processing nightmare to have to take in drawing.
And they have how much time to do this? You said a couple of years?
Probably another year and a half.
So it's been longer than 6 months.
No, it's been about half the cycle.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay, a year.
All right, where are we? Sorry, got it.
I mean, they haven't.
Mr. Chairman, we
the
have
sign look like
acceptance.
it's written right.
Acceptance agenda, where did I do with it?
Oh, we need the agenda.
Acceptance agenda,
Let's do it.
okay. Okay, what do we do here?
You want
Need
to
a
accept
motion?
all three?
Does anybody have any issues on any of them?
I move we accept the acceptance agenda,
Okay,
A, B to C.
seconded. All approve?
Aye.
Aye.
Nay? None? Is all accepted? Planning director decisions.
So it's an opportunity for questions.
Yeah,
We got all these, right?
yes.
Okay.
Yep.
We got it? Any FYIs?
No, I just have a subdivision Mylar for the chair to sign. I'll just get you to sign that on Thursday. So this is for the Matson subdivision, the one in the old Violets Villa Park.
Yeah.
They're very close. I don't have enough to get the mayor to sign, but I can start getting signatures now. So
They're moving. They're moving.
they are.
So-
Anything else?
I have a question for you. I got alerted to your requests among cities about the riparian ordinance
yes.
reviews to compare from my planner in my office, and we responded a little bit.
Yeah.
What's that all about?
We've had we've had, well, you're familiar with the riparian rules. Classic example is the Bailey subdivision where we really had to talk about it. But as part of the city's Goal 5 inventory, which started in the 90s and resulted in the city adopting rules in 2003, the city did an inventory of wetlands and riparian areas and determined which ones were the most important or significant.
Based on functions.
Yeah,
functions.
based on a variety of
And other,
factors. There was some consultants, Pacific Habitat Services, which, according to the DLCD person, I said they know what they're doing. They didn't say they're a bunch of yahoos.
St. Helens didn't use DPHS for their LWA. They used somebody else. It took about 5 years to get it approved.
It seems like I thought I remember
that was
seeing
Capoose.
DPHS on.
It was,
They weren't the lead. It may have been David Evans as the lead. I'd have to look again.
yeah, it was a couple different companies because they dropped it. So usually it's done, I did 11 local inventories in the state, and with my planner in my office, we wrote a lot of these ordinances after we did the inventory. So he says the inventory's done, and then you're required to either do a safe harbor or write actual particular ordinances. So that's how it was done.
And that'll happen before. A lot of that was going on before I even started as a planner. And when I started, I remember some planners working on it, but I really didn't have to worry about periodic review in my career so far. In any case, we adopted these rules in 2003 that says, okay, certain riparian areas and wetlands are important, significant, and so the city adopted, okay, protecting the wetland, and then there's the upland protection zone, which is protected as well. Of course, now the city owns a lot of property. In discussions with the council about, especially the white paper site, hundreds of acre industrial property. There's a variety of wetlands on there. And, I just want to make sure the council's aware, by the way, there are these wetlands here. These are important. There's the upland protection area. And apparently that resulted in a discussion that I wasn't a part of, but our city administrator told me about it, where they didn't like those rules and now want to revisit those. And since we already had home occupations and auxiliary dwelling units on the docket, I figured, well, I'll just throw these in there and see where the conversation goes. So that's going to be something that comes before you all, where we leave, what number is appropriate, and then ultimately to the council for a decision.
Can I ask a question?
Sure. Yeah, absolutely.
No.
I don't know if we've ever done field trips.
Yeah, well, no, we did it for Gold 5, and we did it for the historical review, and we did it for the Riparian Corridor.
The statement and the request is present company accepted. I like the rules and I like what we're doing. And because this is the council pushback is specifically to the white paper site, I think that everybody having a full understanding of what the issue is and what the concern is might be good to get the right thing rather than the council's way over here and you guys are way over here. If everybody knew what we were talking about, we would be closer in coming up with a good consensus that we could all sleep good at night.
Could you put that together?
I really agree with
Do you know what I'm saying? I mean,
Yeah.
that's what I get bothered. The thing that I get in 6 years is when you guys come down, you guys go through a really good process and you guys make a recommendation and the council goes a whole different way and you guys don't know what we were thinking and we don't know what you were thinking. And it's like, if we have an idea and you guys go, oh, this is what they're talking about, this makes sense. And then we can come up with something that both sides can live with, that meets the spirit of the ordinance or the regulation and still meets the city's goals. Does that make sense?
The reviews I was talking
Yeah.
about were not held by this planning. These were like Gold 5, where we took a bus and different,
Do you know what I'm talking about?
Are you suggesting a joint field trip? Like, it sounded like
No,
you
I
wanted
mean,
council
like,
and planning
no.
commission together.
Yeah.
Whatever.
How else do we get on the same
Just
page?
trying to understand what you're asking.
We can't be in silos.
That's what I'm saying is I want to see us be a team for the betterment of our community. There are decisions that come down that the council seems to agree with, like private streets and allowing no sidewalks and stuff like that bother me, but don't bother other people. And it's like, can we all get together and have good development code that makes this a more livable place?
Right.
And I know the council would be on board to plan a time that we could meet over there behind the FARA building, you know, do a drive-by so we all know what we're talking about and come back here and have a joint meeting. And really have good stuff rather than he said, she said, he said, she said, and we never
Yeah.
get to a good place.
Well, how are we gonna put that together?
Put it to, yeah.
I mean, is that just crazy talk?
No.
No,
No.
I'm in
I think
favor of
we're all in
Definitely.
favor of that.
Okay, I mean, I don't know how, because we've never done that in the time I've been on council, but I know
Always
that
the first time.
I mean, I think you should just bring it up at the work session.
when we were talking about white paper, before we ever signed the paper over there, every single counselor drove that property. Before we ever signed anything, I said, I'm not signing anything or saying yay to anything that I haven't seen. And it's like, I haven't lived here for 50 years. I never worked it for Boise. I don't know. So I had to go look with my own eyes. And I think everybody here looking with their own eyes might be good.
No, I
So
agree.
can we direct staff to talk to John and,
Well, I think council needs to.
but I don't
be
want to hit
interested.
John out of left field.
I think council needs to be interested in it as well, don't you?
Right, but if John knows what
Sure.
we're doing,
Sure.
I'm saying because then he'll know what, in order to do
The-
this, we have to do
That
this,
makes
this, and
sense.
this.
See, man.
That makes sense.
Because we usually don't put stuff on the agenda that he doesn't know ahead of time.
Sure.
Well, if he sees the minutes, he'll see it.
I mean, I
Yeah,
just,
he's got a little busy plate these days, but I will try to remember. But I just thought if he got a note and knew it was coming as part of my report,
yeah, and
yeah, I just a heads up. I'm not asking John to arrange it,
Your
but
snack
I
bag?
don't, it's by charter that I'm not supposed to direct staff, tell people what to do. I'm supposed to set policy. And so if I let John know what's going, because he's actually in charge of staff, I don't like
So
to.
just to be clear, the focus would be on the wetlands within the Boise White Paper site.
Correct.
That's a clear focus, so that's good.
Right, and that's the
Not the
only-
Columbia River.
No, but I
um,
think this would be a good first step in being on the same page.
Well, since
Or Milton Creek or.
And I mean, you know, it could foreseeably, for me, just based on my experience, I would like to see that we would do this, so it would be an annual thing. That we would have a joint meeting, sit down and say, you know, what are the concerns, or come up with an agenda and see what your issues are, what the council goals are, so we could all be together. Cause I don't like it when you guys are like, what is the end plan? What do they want to do? And it would be helpful if we knew, we were more clear when we're pushing the boundaries of what you're comfortable with too.
And I think the council asked us for how we can help them. And it's
Exactly.
definitely one thing I said is we need to be able to help you and be able to talk to you and be able to understand what it is you're doing and how you're thinking.
More effective governance.
And you're
for
gonna
sure.
bring that up next meeting will
Yeah,
be
we
the,
have work session next week,
all right.
I
a
have
week from Wednesday.
I have a question about that though. Since we're two different commissions or a council and commission meeting, do we have to notice that? Don't we have to notice that? and
The
say that we're
public,
all-
yeah, the papers
Yeah.
have to.
Yeah, it'll all be public meeting.
Okay.
Yeah, it would all be public meeting, it'd all be announced and all that.
So what I would like to see, ultimately, I think you've brought up a wonderful idea. Ultimately, I'd like to see us
The meeting
have
between
a
council.
field trip and go see things.
Still a
And
public
I'd
meeting.
like to see us have the
Still-
opportunity
There's enough.
to talk with council.
No, well,
and with us.
both city council.
Yeah, I think it makes everybody
All had
stronger.
gone to see and knew what we were talking about.
Yeah, because
Yeah, we're talking, I mean, I'm not even gonna bring it up till next Wednesday, and I believe it's at least 10 days' notice, has to be printed in a whole weeks prior to the newspaper for the meeting, and so we're talking August at the earliest.
yeah, I don't know exactly what the council's issues are. I'm sure they're not to make the buffers wider.
You wanna know the short answer?
And
The short answer?
yeah,
Is that we purchased property and we are slated to get it ready for development, so then there can be jobs here. It's always been a mill that's been all concentrated, and if we wanna have lots of different tenants over there, we need to get it ready. Well, there's places where there are trees close by to where we want to make it flat. So those trees may or may not be within that buffer. So that's the issue is, it's like before we go planning to prepare shovel-ready sites for industry, we want to make sure that we are doing that within the wetland buffer.
So I'm just gonna say, I think it's could be very disingenuous for us to require all this buffer for the private folks, and then when the city develops something, they go, well, let's make these go away so we can develop better.
No, that's the.
That wouldn't look
No,
very
it's-
good for the
it's
public, I
not
don't think.
Make it go away, but it's been brought up before that our buffer is stronger than the state of Oregon. And it's like, we wrote that, is that true? Yeah. Our buffer is wider than it is for the state.
Well,
We
there
require
is
in
no
the city of St.
state
John's.
Department of State lands,
Right,
no
w-
buffer at the Department of State lands.
Right,
So it's, the local agencies set the buffers anyway.
Yeah, it's common for cities.
okay. But, I mean, does it make sense? Does it make, just to look at it and see where we are?
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
not like erase it and all of a sudden we're gonna clear cut up to the creek side, because no one in this room would stand for that. So, but we just wanna be reasonable. I mean, there's a lot of things personally that we've done with buffers that it met the letter of the law, but I don't think it was a little rough on the spirit of the law. So I just wanna make sure that those rules, it's not my idea to
Yeah.
change the rules, but it's the council wants to look at it, and I thought before that comes to you guys, I thought forewarned is forearmed. It's gonna be
Very
a
good.
tough sell for Dan.
Okay,
Yeah, it is, because I think our buffers are not strong enough.
meeting adjourned.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor, meeting adjourned.